Hey guys, welcome to another live show, another live Chino's Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel on your way in. And most importantly, getting into the chat and letting me know what you guys are thinking and feeling about our Champions League draw, which I have here on the right-hand side of your screen. Listen, it's Champions League time again. The champions! No matter what the draw is, no matter who we get, I'm always happy and proud to be in this competition after many, many years of not being in it. So I'll take whoever we can get. But listen, this is our draw and we will get into it. I also have the full schedule here to show you guys as well, or the full draw that, for everyone. But we're also going to talk about where we are with Kiwior, Hincapie, Kiwior, Nelson, and then the big Kai Havertz update as well. Listen, I think this is a good draw. We were in pot 2, and the first team that we drew was Bayern, of course. And we always get Bayern. This will be the second time since Mikel Arteta has gotten us back to the Champions League, in which we have them. So EA us. But obviously this is like the new format. So the last time we played them was in the round of the quarterfinal. And so this time is in group play, but playing Bayern is playing Bayern. We play them at home. We play Inter away. We play Atletico Madrid, so Berta against his old side, the two anti-football institutions going up against each other. We have them at home, and then Club Brugge away, Olympiacos at home, Slavia Praha away. Carrot Almaty, I feel like this is a team that's in a very, very far away land. And then Athletic Club, who we literally just played in preseason, away. So, or we actually play at Karit Almaty at home. So, my initial thoughts is I think that this is a really good draw. I think that it could have been worse, to be honest. And once you get beyond Inter, I feel like all of these games should be dubs, if I'm honest. The other two are teams that we've played recently that we have not done as well as we probably should have against. So this is another, test, for us to see if we can flip the script, and another chance to turn Bayern over. We need to get over this Bayern thing at some stage. But man, I feel good about it. I really want to know what you guys think, because I feel good about this draw. I feel like playing Bayern at home is better than going to the Allianz Arena playing Atletico Madrid at home instead of the Metropolitano is a blessing. I feel like the only game that's in a really tough away ground is the San Siro, which we went there last season, and they were not their best, but we definitely were not our best either. And they came out with a 1-0 win off of like a penalty that was like, the weird handball in Europe bullshit off of Marino. But we could not hit a barn door. Everybody else, I'm going to be really, really honest with you guys. I expect to win these games. I'm not like writing them off like they're not good teams, but we're in Arsenal. We're supposed to be a top side. The other games have got to be a formality outside of Inter and Bayern Munich, if I'm honest. Atletico probably will be a tough game as well, just because they're a good team and they have, Julian Alvarez, so they have quality. Still expect to beat them at home. So, yeah, I think this is a good draw. I think last season, we had two tough Italian teams. We had PSG as well. So, there were some things there too, but we did well outside of that. So I'm feeling really good about this, like famous last words, but I am feeling good about it. This Olympiacos at home, if you guys know me, this game changed me. That game that we played in the round of 32 in the Europa League against Olympiacos at home changed me as a person. It altered my brain chemistry. It traumatized me. I've never in my life been so frustrated with Arsenal. And that's saying a lot because obviously, we've had some tough European days. But that Olympiacos in that round of 32, when I threw my phone up against the wall, I said, I need to back away. I've completely lost who I am as a person today watching this. And so I think we owe them. I think we owe them, seriously. Um, whew, Lord, but listen, to me, this is a fortuitous draw. I'll be honest. I think obviously we can try to manipulate in our mind about how difficult it's going to be, but if we're the team that we're supposed to be, this is a good draw on paper for sure. Draw looks decent. John says 2 things that are sure in UCL: City versus Real Madrid and Arsenal versus Bayern. You look gorgeous. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Your girl cleans up well when she decides not to look like a little boy, so thank you so much. I appreciate that. We're 100% getting top 8, which is important, which we did last season. Roscoe says it's easy. I see us winning all these games, 6-0 minimum, or we riot. Inter away again, sad face. Yeah. I hate the San Siro. I didn't like the way we played there, the way that we looked there last season, but I want to believe that bringing in the players that we've brought in will make a big difference. We really were not ourselves attack-wise last season. And of course, even at ourselves, there were questions about how we attacked and stuff like that, but we just could not put the ball in the back of the net against Inter. And so I'm hoping having, players like Gyökeres and Eze in the team will change that. It has to, or else what was the point of all of this? We should feel like those players are going to make a difference. And having more players fit and a deeper team and, playing a lot more aggressive should help, but Inter is definitely a difficult team to play up against because obviously, Italian teams, they defend well and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see how that goes. We have a decent EPL schedule fall winter. Having the hardest UCL games at home is great. Exactly. Gyökeres is going to tear it up in the Champions League. And I think Keenan makes an interesting point that, I know that there are reservations around Gyökeres and what his true level is. And I think at the bare minimum, even if Gyökeres does not end up being a 30-goal a season for us striker and ends up being our Haaland or our Kane or whatever you want to call it, I think if at the bare minimum he can make our lives easier in the Champions League and score goals, and because it's more open in the Champions League. It's more open, so if he can help us be more dangerous in the Champions League and also, be a flat track bully against some of the smaller teams in the Premier League, that's going to help us quite a bit, even if maybe in the bigger games he's not what we need him to be. Now, I anticipate Gyökeres being everything that we want him to be, but I do think that when you think about it that way, he's going to be really good in the Champions League. We know that because there's going to be a lot of space. There's going to be, it's going to be a lot more transitional, that kind of stuff. So I think, like Keenan says, he's going to tear it up in the Champions League. Just need to maintain our squad health and stop picking up injuries. Champions League, he gets space. Draw against Bayern, loss against Inter, win the rest. As a Champions League ball, I cannot wait. Him, his first Champions League game or, whatever, his first go at Champions League and coming up against Olise is going to be, I think, quite interesting. Eze in the Champions League is going to be very, it's going to be obviously amazing for him because it's going to be the first time he plays in Europe, I think, right? So the first time you play in Europe and one of your first games is going to be against Bayern Munich and one of your really good friends is on that team. That's a dream, isn't it? So again, I expect Gyökeres and Eze to make the difference for Arsenal in the Champions League and the Premier League, but the Champions League for sure. Because it's just, it's just a different vibe. We're not going to have teams sitting back in low blocks against us. It's going to be really bar for bar, band for band, and so I give us a good chance. Eze against Elise. It's awesome. Havertz will have surgery, but we don't know how long he'll be out for. We'll get to that in a second. Pace is key in the Champions League. So, yeah, I think we've added players that are good on transition. And so hopefully we'll get to see progress in terms of like how we execute on transition. I have seen, Arteta trying to implement that into the game plan. I'm not one of those people that's going to pretend like I don't see us trying to play differently. Leeds was a little bit of like we're playing up against a bad team that's kind of sitting in at the M's, but against Bilbao and against Man United, I did see us trying, but our execution was not great. I expect our execution to get a lot better. I expect players like, Madueke and Eze and Gyökeres to make us better in those circumstances, so yeah, pace is key in the Champions League. And I think we've added, some of that, some players that are really good on transition. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Let's see. I can see us getting 18 to 20 points based on players we have added. Gyökeres, Eze, Nani. Eze was destined for the spotlight. He is one of the reasons I'm confident about this season. He rises to the occasion. No one wants to play us. And I did see, I think it was maybe Barcelona fans talking about who they didn't want to get. And we were definitely one of those teams. I think just ultimately, people don't want to face Arsenal because they have this idea that we're incredibly difficult to break down, which is true. But most teams are not good at defending set pieces. So I think when they see, Gabriel and players like that putting the ball in the back of the net with these corners, and these corners are looking like penalties, I think they get a little shook. And so I don't think our teams necessarily want to play us. I would imagine that Bayern probably feel like historically they've always beat us. So, they feel like it's going to be exactly the same. But this is probably the first time that we're going to go up against Bayern where I feel like we are equally matched as we've been ever, to be honest. I think in the past, we've always been undersized, no depth, lacking something, clinical edge, something. We've always been lacking something. And it's always felt like boys versus men. I think this is going to be the first time that we come up against them where it's going to feel pretty equal. They have Olise. Hopefully, we'll have Saka. If we don't have Saka, we'll have Madueke. They have Musiala. Maybe he's injured still, but they'll have whoever they have, and we'll have Eze. They have Kane. We have Gyökeres. They have. If we cannot fuck their back lineup in 2025, I'm gonna have serious questions because do we rate their back line really? I'm not even trying to talk shit. I'm really not. But where Bayern, I feel like, have a little bit of a blind spot is probably that back line. Diaz, we know what Diaz is on. We know what Olise is on. We know those players incredibly well. We know what they're about. Played in the Premier League for many, many years. So, yeah, Diaz, Kane, Olise, hopefully Saka, Gyökeres, Eze, or whoever, Zubimendi and Rice versus whoever they play in the middle these days, So, yeah, I'm feeling like we should be feeling more confident than maybe we did. Because I felt like we were pretty confident in 2023, but we didn't have the firepower necessary to take them down. That was really the big problem that we had. Inter and Atletico Madrid will park the bus. Yeah, they, how Inter are. So we know that they're going to be difficult to break down. They're, what they're on. So, but we should have the tools to, I don't want to hear about low blocks in 2025. We've spent 300 million in this window but by the time we buy Hincapie, hopefully we will have spent 300 million in this window. If we're still talking about not being able to break down deep blocks, we didn't do what we needed to do in the window. Inter don't have Inzaghi anymore. Atletico will be haram ball masterclass. I already know we need to score a minimum of 2 to win because Kane will 100% score. I am not worried about Inter or Atletico. We have Eze now to unlock low blocks. Our defense is excellent. Gyökeres will bully Atletico. Arsenal can't lose the first game at the Emirates. We are going to flex. I'm listening to the comments. I think you guys sound confident and excited. And even talking about Anfield, going to Anfield, I feel like a lot of Arsenal fans feel confident and relaxed. Now this could all come back to bite, because going to Anfield is a difficult task, but I think that's what happens when you sign a player like Eze, because the vibe was still not what it is now when we signed Gyökeres and Madueke. The difference that one player can make in the confidence of a fan base is crazy. And I think it's justified. Eze is the type of player that comes into the team and shakes the table, so I hear it. I hear it. This is the first time since Arteta has been our manager where we have signed top quality attackers, hence my confidence. The order of these fixtures is yet to be released, which is, got to wait for that for sure. Quietly confident. Exactly. I am not scared of any team anymore. It's time to put Bayern to bed. And we were talking about this. I know some of you guys, I know you guys were watching Judge Mo's show because I see you guys in the comments. I know I saw like Marco. I saw a couple of you guys, but they were kind of like, oh, Arsenal fans are so confident. Arsenal fans are so confident. And I'm like, I think everybody still recognizes that going to Anfield is going to be incredibly difficult. And they're still very much so favorites, to win that game. But I feel like it's not like we're going to Anfield with, no offense to these players because I love these players, but it's not like we're going to Anfield with a front line of Marino and Trossard and Martinelli, or Martinelli, Marino, and Ethan, or whatever. We're potentially going into a game without our best player, but being able to field a front line of Eze, Gyökeres, and Madueke. And no matter I really do feel like that gives Arsenal fans a lot of confidence, because we know that even if you don't rate Madueke that highly, I think you would give him quite a bit of oh, he could probably get at Kirkus, so even if he's not Saka, he could probably get at Kirkus, so I don't know why they're acting so shocked that Arsenal fans are not shook, because one, even with our bad attack, I don't think, when's the last time we lost at Anfield? It's been a minute, and we're not going in there with a ragtag group of people. We're going in there with a part of an upgraded attack. So yeah, I would love to have Saka to going to Anfield, but even without him, I feel like we should feel like we could get something. Right? And I feel like even with these games like Bayern, I'm feeling like we can do something for sure. And definitely going to San Siro, I expect with a better attack for us to make it shake. And then the rest of these games, not saying that these teams are not good, not saying that these teams don't have some quality, not saying that these teams cannot hurt us in some way, but I feel like we should feel confident that we're going to beat Atletico, Club Brugge, Olympiacos, Slavia Praha, Karit Almaty, and Athletic Club. I feel like it feels weird to be confident, but I feel like it's not arrogance, because when I looked at my group chat for Judge Mo, when everybody's fixtures came out, they feel like they're like, Arsenal got an easy draw and they should do well. So, why should I feel like I need to be like, oh no, it's so hard? No. Isak to Liverpool, which, I don't think that that's too big of a surprise at this stage. Walt Made is going to go to Newcastle, and once they finalize that, they'll do what they're going to do. But Newcastle are put in a 85 million pound bid or it's like a done deal already for Walt Made. So yeah. Which I'm just not surprised. Isak decided he didn't want to play for them anymore, and they'd have to fold. So, it is what it is. Manchester City, as usual, with the easiest draw. Let's see. I think Bayern Atletico will definitely be tricky, even though we're at home, but I'm confident we can win at least one. I hear that for sure. Thank goodness that Karit Almaty tie is at home. That is a journey. Right. They're like very far away. I think people were saying like they're like in Asia. Are they not? Where are they? Where are they? Where are they? Kazakhstan? Did somebody say? So, yeah, stuff. Spurs have the easiest draw. I'm sure they do. He said going to Liverpool, he will have an Mbappe effect on Liverpool. He's going to spoil their chemistry and unsettle their players. I'm going to be really, really honest with you guys with the Isak Liverpool stuff. Mentally, I'm like, he's going there. And as long as, we've gotten what we need to get, that's all we can control. So I know some Arsenal fans are going to be heartbroken because they had decided that this player was ours, but it is what it is. So, I don't know. I'm kind of whatever about it at this stage, but it's because I've already in my mind, I'm like, he's going to Liverpool. Like, what's our head-to-head record with Bayern? Let's see. Bayern has the historical advantage. Yeah, basically, Bayern has more wins than Arsenal. Bayern have won all of their last 3 most recent meetings, which is not true because we drew, but let me see if I can find it. I think just from memory, you probably know that they have been superior to us pretty much the whole time. So, yeah, I'm just waiting for that to load up. Let's see. Hincapie has already locked up Elise once already. Isak can go to Liverpool. I'm more than happy with our window, especially if we end off with Hincapie. Like, don't get me wrong, I'd love for another winger if Martinelli was to leave, but we have done a lot, and that's kind of where I'm at as well. Like, we've done so much in this window and they've pretty much done everything that I wanted. Not like they have to do what I want, but in terms of like getting the players that are necessary for us to feel confident going to Anfield, feel confident when we look at this, this Champions League draw that we can win these games. They've done all that. We'll obviously, when the window closes, we'll do a full inventory and give our, kind of overall grade. But right now, this window is such a smash hit for me that regardless of what anybody else gets, I feel like we can do what we want to do. But I try to focus more on us than the opposition because we can't control that, right? But in terms of head-to-head, like versus Bayern, we've won 3, we've drawn 3, and we've lost 8. And in the last 3, we haven't won any. We drew obviously away from home, or we drew at home. Actually, sorry, let me go back. We lost away in 2024, and we drew at home, the 2-2. And then it comes the 5-1, the 5-1, the 5-1. We did 3 5-1s in a row between November 2015 to March 2017. Our last win against Bayern was in October 2015, a 2-0 win. So there you go. Head to head. Liverpool are bunching a ton of money together for a striker they arguably don't need. That money is very needed elsewhere in their squad. I'm not bothered Isak going to Liverpool as long as Konate continues looking suspect. Remember, we lost 10-2 for 2 straight years. Listen, we got to change that around. We have got to beat them. Would I prefer if we were going to beat them to be in a knockout round than the league part. Yes, but beggars can't be choosers. Right now, we just gotta get the job done. And so we need to make sure that when they come to the Emirates this time around, they don't leave with shit. That's just the reality. We need to beat them. Um, we have all planted our flag in Europe. Ozil, they're getting Gahey as well, so that don't matter. I think we just have to focus on ourselves. Elise versus Eze, was that the oil goal off the crossbar? Um, the Ozil goal off the crossbar. I think so. Nasty diabolical work from Wenger. They keeping Isak. I don't think so. Am I the only one who doesn't care about Isak going to Liverpool? I think, pre Eze, if we didn't have Eze, I do think that people would still be like super rattled by it, because some people, it wasn't so much about Isak, it was about feeling like Liverpool had done so much that we couldn't compete. That's why I'm saying, like, the Eze signing alone, I think, has given Arsenal fans the confidence that we can, like, beat all these teams that are to my right or your right or whatever. And also, like, go to Anfield and do something. So all we needed to do was do our business, and that changes, that changes the picture. Obviously, them getting Isak is on paper a really good addition. So, there's nothing we really can do about that, but yeah. Saeed's stream yesterday was generational. Oh my goodness. I want to take some time and talk about United at the end. So stay to the end so we can do a little bit of Schadenfreude. But yes, it was generational. Yep, Eze signing is a big deal for us. I'll be real. I need a left wing to complete the window. Eze and Wanyeri being ready this year changes a lot. But they have 2 strikers of quality. We only have 1, Jess. I mean, I don't know what to tell you there. I think again, we can only focus on ourselves. So we've spent 300 million in this window, and we've pretty much, I think it's not so much that, oh, they have 2 good strikers, so we need to go get another striker. It's, did we do the things that we needed to do for us, not about them. And I feel like that's the thing, is we're looking at them and we're like, they have Isak and Ekatike, so now we need to have another striker. I don't think we need another striker. I don't think anybody that came into this window felt like we needed to come in and get 2 strikers, but because now Liverpool have done that, now it's like, now we need 2 strikers. We needed 2 attackers that lift the levels, which we've gotten that. I know some people would have preferred it to be a left wing, but when it's Eze, are you really going to be upset that it's Eze? Probably not. We got Eze, we got Gyökeres, we brought in Zubamendi. We backfilled our team with so much depth and quality. Now people are actually sitting there and saying Arsenal have the best squad overall. Honestly, like, rivals saying that feels a little like wild to me. But, with Hincapie potentially coming in, Mascara, I don't know anybody that has that depth. Again, like, Liverpool are already playing Szoboszlai at right back, so I get it that they're still doing stuff, and Isak is going to be a big boost for them. But bringing in 2 strikers in this window was never a remit for us. So that's like if Chelsea went out there and bought 2 center backs, and we were like, Chelsea bought 2 center backs, so now we need to buy 2 center backs. No, we don't. We needed that main striker and another attacker. That's how I felt about it, but I think, I feel like some fans, and not necessarily Unico, but I think some fans can only see our window through the eyes of what everybody else is doing. And so if they go get this, then we need to go get this. I think we've had a slam dunk of a window. We've got a slam dunk of the window. Now, can we still get better from here? Absolutely. There's always things that you can do to improve your squad. No squad is ever complete. Even when Liverpool get Isak, they'll still feel like there's things that they can do. Their squad is not perfect, but that won't stop them from feeling like they can win the league. And that should not stop us from feeling like we should win the league. We need to look at our window through the eyes of, like, what was our personal checklist, and did we do those things? Jesus gives us a boost in October before we sell him. Fans need to stop watching rivals. Liverpool have dog shit depth. I'm happier about Eze deal than I thought I'd be. That signing alone has changed my whole thought process on what we can do. And this is why I felt like people were being, I know this is kind of off topic and we'll get back to Champions League in a second, but it does affect it, because I feel like before people were doing up like, how could you be upset with our window? We did this, we got backups, we got this, like we got Norgard and Kepa. And I'm just like, the weight of those signings are so small that it doesn't really mean anything outside of the fact that we got some depth. We still needed those attacking signings because they are so heavily weighted that they could change the window from like a 6 to a 9, just like that. And that's what Eze did. So yeah, I'm sure I'm lagging now because my internet has just went down. So hopefully not, but hopefully you guys heard some of that. But all I was saying was that that some signings are just bigger than others. They just are. Some signings are just more important than others. And pre-Eze, this window was a solid 6 or 7 to me, because we had only really like Kepa, Norgard signings, Mascara signings are great, but it wasn't the main assignment. We've gotten the main assignment done. I'm ready to go now. And this, if we get Hincapie, we have also potentially brought in a starting level left back and improved upon Kiwior. So now you have 2 top quality left backs in Calafiori and Hincapie. You've replaced Kiwior essentially with Mascara, or some combination of Kiwior and Tommy with Mascara, which is better than what we had before. And now you could potentially move Miles into left center mid, which is almost like a signing in itself. You have to look at our window through our own eyes and not the eyes of like, what are rivals doing? You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I look at it. But, that's just me. I know I was lagging for a second, guys. Sorry. I think Saliba Gabriel will play together for 3 of the first UCL games, and the rest will either be Mascara or Hincapie. I actually think the center back pairing will be Calafiori and Mascara. I think that Hincapie is being brought in as a left back. I don't see Arteta changing away from 6-foot-something center backs. I know when we're having these conversations with people with Timber, people are like, he's definitely coming in to play right center back. He's definitely coming in to play right center back. And I was like, probably not. He'll probably never touch that position. I just don't see Arteta moving away from super athletic, super tall, monsters of center backs. Some of our center backs that we bring in are going to play fullback. And I think just like Timber, Hincapie is going to play that position. And like in preseason, there were times where Calafiori was preferred over Kiwior for the left center back position. And I think we just needed to bring somebody in to take over some of the left back duties, to utilize Calafiori at left center back more. Not only is that his more natural position, but it's also going to protect him from his injuries. So I would actually think that the center back pairing in rotation games is going to be Mascara and Calafiori, and Hincapie would play left back. But yeah, that's kind of, what I think. And Hincapie is 6 feet. So I don't know which way you're meaning this, but 6 foot is not 6'4", 6'3", 6'2". It's different. That Atletico game looks like a Norgard type of game. Need a crunching tackle, right? And then, think about utilizing like Dauman and Ethan in game like these 4 games here: Olympiacos, Slavia Praha, Karit, Almaty, Athletic Club. Depending on where these games fall, it could be really good for us, because maybe we have harder games in the Prem, potentially, so you can actually rotate properly and not lose any of your level potentially. There is a chance that we will see Max Dauman in this Champions League. Can't wait. Let's see. Just realized that Cala 6'2" makes sense, Jess. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I feel like, of course, like when I say that, I think that Hincapie is going to play left back if and when we sign him. I'm not saying that he'll never play left center back because I don't feel like there's never a chance that Timber will play right center back. I just think they would be further down the list than Mascara or Calafiori because they're more like Saliba and Gabrielle in that they're much taller and bigger in stature. And yeah, I don't think Arteta will want to give that up. But it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things because what you have is an incredibly versatile group of defenders that are of a certain quality. And so it really doesn't matter that much. But if I had to guess where Hincapie is going to play, I would say it's most likely left back. No, Dowman can't play until December because of the rules. Oh, yeah. So maybe later on then. Why are you not a year older? Damn it. Are you sure? Surely he can play one of these games. Surely. Surely. Well, we'll see him regardless. Because ain't no way that fool is playing. He is playing. Dowman is gonna play some games, that's for sure. After December, there are still 2 games, so he might play. It just depends on which games they are, because if it's like Karit Almaty or Athletic Club, I think we'll see some Dowman. I think Norgard is supposed to be fit for Nottingham Forest, so probably not yet. I think Gyökeres is going to be top 3 scorers after the league phase. You're saying no, he can play, so I guess we'll get some clarity on that soon. We have needed someone to help with our low block issues for quite some while now. We have Eze, which is so exciting. Yeah, I read it somewhere. The kid is 4 months early. Isn't Zinchenko linked with any team? That politician really needs to go. I haven't seen him linked with anyone. Dowman, Hattie against Karit. We will be there. Yeah, so either way, we'll even see like Ethan. I'm excited. This is probably the first time in a long time that I felt, well, it was just last season and maybe a little bit of the season before, but where I wasn't that excited about things because I was like, I just don't know if we have enough, but yeah, getting new attackers makes you feel differently about what you can do. Adding defenders is obviously great still, but having new attackers just gives you a new lease on life. So before we close like this section, I want to know in the chat, there's 1,300 of you guys watching on all platforms. Thank you guys so much. Like and subscribe. Which game are you most excited for? Which game are you most excited for? And if you're in the area, is there any game that you're planning to go to? Are you planning to go to Belgium? Are you planning to go to Spain? Are you planning to go to Italy? I would love to know. I feel like the game I'm most excited about is definitely Bayern, because I feel like we have enough this time to actually beat them. But yeah, I'm excited. Bayern at home, Inter away for revenge versus Bayern, Liverpool versus Arsenal, Bayern and Inter, Bayern because they dropped that cringe tweet, Bayern to get our look back. I want to go to Bayern or Atletico at the Emirates. Bayern, Inter, we have more to beat Bayern. Need my revenge on Bayern 7-0 or nothing. Arteta versus Simeone Harambal will be cinema. Inter, the final boss of Loma. Bayern and Atletico. Athletic Club away. See you, Nico. It could have been you. I mean, listen, I don't know who will play because I don't know what it's going to be like when we finally get to Athletic Club. But would I like to see Timber absolutely pocket Nico Williams? Yes, I would. I would love to see any of our defenders pocket him. Yeah, I'm spiteful. Yes, I am. So yeah, I would love to see that. I worry with Bayern though because Olise, Kane, Diaz ain't no joke, especially on the counter. Oh, of course. Like, I'm not saying that Bayern is going to be a walk in the park. I just think we finally have enough to actually hurt them. Our biggest problem is not necessarily defending all the time. I know that we were poor in defense after we scored our first goal against them at home. And then all of a sudden we just lost our heads. Like, we should have been 2-0 up and then we weren't. Ben White should have scored. And then the Kiwior mistakes and Sane was running rampant and all that kind of stuff, and then the pen. But I'm not really worried about the defense because they'll keep the score low. The biggest problem that we've had over the last couple of seasons has been when we needed to score in tight games, we have not been able to put the ball in the back of the net. Whether that was Bayern, whether that was Porto, away, Allianz Arena, Porto away, uh, Aston Villa away, Newcastle away. Those games we just could not score a goal to save our lives, and we looked so weak up front. And so as long as we have the ability to actually hurt them as well, our defense is going to keep the score low enough where we have a chance. They're not going to always be perfect. They're not going to always keep a clean sheet, but they damn near do almost every single game. So last time we played them, I want to say that our front line was like Havertz, Trossard, and Saka, or Havertz, Martinelli, and Saka. And we just know that was nowhere near enough, So, yeah, I wish Bayern game was away. I don't. The Allianz Arena is, I don't know, it's spooky. The league phase also suits us better. We can get a draw with Bayern and still be fine. It was 1 or 2 goals that stopped us continually. Arsenal will draw in 1 game, and that's Atletico Madrid. I expect Arsenal to beat other teams comfortably, including Bavarians. I'm always fearful anytime Arsenal fans become cocky. Last season, we were so cocky after beating Madrid, and PSG brought us back to earth. I mean, I don't know. I feel like whether we were cocky or not, it is what it is, and I feel like with PSG, it was just one step too far with the injuries that we had, and we were just kind of, you know, I don't know what it is. It just felt like we only had enough to do the Real Madrid games, and it also helped that Real Madrid were not in the best space as well. I'm not saying we didn't earn it or whatever, but PSG ended up winning the whole thing, so going out and losing to a team that like whooped Inter 5-0 in the final is kind of like, even if we had been shitting on our team, we still probably would have lost that game. So I think I actually prefer Arsenal fans more confident. I don't feel like, especially like in this chat, I don't feel that there's a level of arrogance, but always being down towards your team and never thinking that you can do stuff, that's like the antithesis of being a fan. And so unless we are, you know, I don't know, Burnley or, a team like that, I don't see why a team that's almost expected to win the league and got to a semifinal of a Champions League can't feel like we're going to beat these teams. Have UCL considered the suggestion from Arsenal last season about starting away during the PSG tie? You mean the teams that did better in the league phase getting the home game? Is that what you're talking about? Because I know that they changed something, but I just don't remember exactly what it is. Just please, Arsenal, don't bring out that terrible tifo. Please burn that from my brain. I don't want to hear about the tifo or think about the tifo. No more tifo. We're not good at it. Like, drop it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not you in particular, but like Arsenal never again. Oof, that was dark, very dark. It's definitely not arrogance, but I don't why this feels like a special season, especially after the Eze signing. I feel like as a fan, unless you have a reason to be, or you're naturally an incredibly pessimistic individual like myself, there's no reason to at this point not to feel like we can't win the majority of these games. Even if it was last season without Gyökeres and all of them, I still probably would have felt like Bruges and all those games should be wins, So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But listen, we can still get beat, but ride the vibes while you can. Like Shamaria said, the vibes are good. I sense a trophy lift this season. Like have some fun with it. Before we get brought down back down to life, let's just live in this moment. If if it ends up happening that way, the team who finishes higher in the league phase will be at home in the second leg in the knockouts, I believe. Right. So we I don't think had the benefit of being home in the second round. We had to go away, but Real Madrid was definitely much lower than us in the league phase and ended up being home second. You know, 90 minutes is a long time in the Bernabeu and all that shit. So yeah, we should, if you were higher, you should get the benefit of being home last because we know that, that's the better way of things going for you. So yeah. Players smiled in the training. In training, it seems like we have the vibes, same vibes we had in 22-23 season. Let's see if we play like it. This is a really big game that we have on Sunday. Cannot be understated. It feels really, really good to be in a position where you feel like you can do something, but to put it in practice and do it in the actual game, that's a whole nother thing. Going to Anfield is never easy. They're going to feel good about themselves as well, so they're going to have to perform. But I'm loving this team. I'm loving the vibes. This is, like you said, this is like the first time in a while that it's felt this good. So we'll see how we get on. Now, let's look at everybody else's stuff as well before we fully move on to just some other stuff. So you see how smooth that transition was? I don't think I've ever transitioned that smooth before. that was kind of cool. You can still kind of, let me see. Let's see. Can I move myself? Probably not. Let me see if I can. No. Oh well. Who is this on the bottom here? Barcelona. So that's Barcelona at the bottom there. This is how it shakes out for everyone. That's in pot 1. When I tell you that PSG got absolutely rinsed in this draw, somebody paid. Somebody paid for them not to get it again. They said never again. They said never again. Maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was Man City or something. Said never again. This will never happen again. We are the only oil team that gets to hold this trophy. But PSG got absolutely rinsed. Home to Bayern, away to Barcelona, home to Atalanta, away to Leverkusen, home to Tottenham, away to Sporting, home to Newcastle, and away to Athletic Bilbao. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Now, if there's any team that could survive this and do well, it's probably PSG, but it just depends on what shape they're in. I think they maybe started off a little slow so far this season, maybe not in results, but just in overall performance. We saw what they look like against Tottenham. Not great. you know so they got rinsed, so damn. Now, Real Madrid, Man City, of course. Man City at home, Liverpool away, Juventus at home, Benfica away, Marseille at home, Olympiacos away, Monaco at home, and Kuwait away. So they have to go to the far, far away land. Not too bad, but also not the best. I feel like they would have probably wanted to avoid Man City and Liverpool and maybe get Newcastle and Tottenham or something like that if they had to get somebody from the Prem. But will I be absolutely tuned into those games? You're absolutely correct. I will be tuned in. Those are some of the tasty early fixtures that you get with this new league phase, which is why I think this league phase is needed for the Champions League, because it was always like a formality for like Real Madrid and teams like that to get like these really easy groups and like nothing would happen. This league phase has made it so that we have some big entertaining fixtures early off. So of course we have to play Bayern and people are going to be tuned in for that. But I'm going to be, that Man City, Real Madrid, and the Liverpool Real Madrid, we'll be there. Those are going to be tasty. Man City, of course, they did what they always do. They get some lightweight, Bundesliga team like RB Leipzig or, one of those. And they got Dortmund at home. away at the Bernabeu, like we already said. Leverkusen, Villarreal, Napoli, Bodo Glimt, Galatasaray, and Monaco. Good for them. Bayern, Chelsea at home, PSG away, Club Brugge at home, us away, Sporting at home, PSV away, USG, I don't know who that is, sorry guys, and PAF away. So I'm sure these two games at the end are probably not that difficult. Liverpool, let's see. They got a pretty easy draw. Can't lie. They got Real Madrid at home, Inter away, Atletico Madrid at home, Frankfurt, PSV, Marseille, Kornbag probably, and Galatasaray. So the mixed bag, but pretty favorable in my opinion. Pinter, sorry, don't care. Chelsea got Barcelona at home, Bayern away, Benfica at home, Atalanta, away, Ajax at home, Napoli away, PAF at home, Carbag, I think that is away. Probably the fixture I'm looking forward to the most beyond the more, obvious ones like Barcelona and Bayern is that Napoli game. I actually have it on my calendar this evening, or not this evening, this weekend to tune into a Napoli game because I'm kind of locked in to see how KDB and Scott McTominay build up this two-man step for Conte. So I feel like that could be an interesting game. Because they have to go away. But they got some harder games and some easier ones in there. So, good for them. And then, these other teams got whatever they got, So you guys said that Tottenham got an easy draw, so I believe you. And I'll be honest, I don't have it in me to look at Newcastle's fixtures because I'm like, whatever, who cares? But Bayern, that high Arsenal just sickened me. You must beat them. But Sandeal says, my Doomer era is over. Thank you, Berta. Conte in Europe ain't pretty. Those games are not in order. They're not in order. Napoli have a tight defense, only 27 goals allowed last season. I do think that that's going to be an underrated fixture. KDB, Scott McTominay, two-man step. I just feel like that's going to be a tasty fixture. But I actually, again, want to watch some of their games leading up to that because I'm invested. I really do think that that could be a really good two-man step. And Napoli were really good last season, and they could end up being good again. So let's see. Conte is horrible in Europe, you guys are saying. Newcastle had a hard draw. Tottenham didn't have an easy draw. It's about as hard as ours. Fair enough. And I'm not getting fooled by PSG performance in the league phase. I learned my lesson last season. Mikel, please beat Bayern. So, yeah, that's pretty much, what the Champions League is going to be like. I am excited. I haven't been excited in a while. I hope I don't get humbled. But, yeah, I am excited to see how we fare. The one thing I don't know that you guys can enlighten me on is where's the final? You guys know? Sorry, I know it's like you're the person who's supposed to be giving us the news. Why don't you know? I forgot. Where is it? Budapest. Thanks. Preach. Didn't Conte win with Inter, went to the Europa League final? I don't know. I know that Conte is a league man. That's what we know. He's a league man, but I still want to see that game. I still want to see that game. Is it that Højlund has got to here we go to Napoli? I want to know. Could be an interesting game. So yeah, loving this, loving our draw so far. And so last but not least, I do want to just give like an update on where we are with certain transfers. What are you looking at? Hello? I don't know why Beckham is just staring at me from the couch. Like, are you okay? Like, are you okay? But let's talk about Hincapie plus Kiwior. So the Kiwior situation is that Arsenal expect to get 22 million pounds for Kiwior, and that deal is locked and loaded and ready to go as soon as we're able to negotiate the deal with Bayer Leverkusen for Hincapie. So Kiwior is waiting with bags packed for Porto. If Arsenal sign Hincapie, it will trigger a domino effect, causing Kiwior to leave for Porto, with whom he has agreed a 5-year deal. So, and that's coming from a tier 1 Porto journalist, I believe. I don't know, but let's just go with it. I think with this one, it's just, a matter of time. I know I saw something about Hincapie earlier today from Fabrizio Romano, I think, kind of talking about where we were with everything. Let me pull that up. Why is he drinking that water so loud? One thing about Beckham is he is going to drink that water so loud. I know you guys can't hear it, but it's just like the loudest. Oh, hold on. Okay. So this is I swear there was one earlier today. There was. Okay, so Arsenal are now in direct talks with Bayer Leverkusen for Piero Hincapie deal after personal terms have been agreed. Arsenal preference for a loan with obligation as deal now depends on the structure to be approved or not by Leverkusen. If Hincapie deal can be agreed, Kiwior can join Porto. So we're pretty much just in the negotiation phase, right? And we're trying to get it done sooner rather than later because obviously the window closes on Monday. So this is what Hand of Arsenal is saying, that Andrea Berta has set an internal deadline to reach a conclusion with Leverkusen for Hincapie. He does not want talks to drag on until deadline day, leaving Arsenal scrambling for replacement for Kiwior. Sources with knowledge suggest that there is a secret verbal pact between Hincapie and senior members at the club where he could leave for below his release clause. Andrea Berta is well informed on such intel, is aiming to negotiate the package around 50 million euros or slightly less. Talks ongoing between the clubs to reach a conclusion. Loan plus obligation is the preference for both clubs to record the transaction on next year's financial records, but different formulas are being discussed. Important to note that Hincapie rejected other clubs once Andrea Berta contact, ultimately forcing Leverkusen to deal with Arsenal only. Although he has been a long-term target for Arsenal, Berta has kept excellent relations with his camp from his days at Atletico, which made it very easy to reject Spurs. So, yeah, I cautiously optimistic. I feel like this will get done eventually. I know that they'd probably rather keep him, but it is what it is. I hope we can get that deal done. I think he's an upgrade on Kiwior. We had spoken about that on a previous show. He will lessen the damage on Calafiori and also maybe open up the lane for MLS to play in midfield, which if MLS is able to play in midfield this season, that is like a signing, in my opinion. Having him play in midfield instead of left back, it to me is almost like a signing. So yeah, there's no confirmation that MLS will play in midfield, but it's just an assumption that a lot of us kind of have. So, hopefully. But yeah, I think this deal gets done. I would wish Kiwior nothing but the best. I do think he's a good player, just maybe not the right fit. And Hincapie has all of the qualities to be the perfect Arteta defender. He's good defensively. He's athletic. Uh, he's played at a high level. He's won things before. I don't think he's quite a timber on the left, but he is definitely somebody that could slot straight in and be a really, like, instead of being a backup option, be another option as a starter, which would be an upgrade on Kiwior, who was ultimately, I don't want to call him just a backup, but there was never going to be a scenario where we would choose him over somebody else to start, if that makes sense. So if other people were fit. So yeah, I am cautiously optimistic about this one. You never really know what will happen at the end of the day. But I feel like maybe the only negative or downside to this, which there isn't much, but is maybe that the fee for Kiwior is maybe a lot lower than what maybe we had anticipated. I was seeing 40 million, I was seeing 45 million, things like that, because of how well he played at the back end of the season. But when you're dealing with Portuguese clubs and clubs outside of the UK or England, you're going to probably anticipate that the fee is going to be lower. And so if we're getting basically, what we paid to get him, which is about like 25 million, then I don't see it as that big of a deal, especially since I think it was Gunner Blog was saying that Arsenal expect to receive actually closer to 30 million, because whatever the add-ons are going to be, they're easily achievable. So, it kind of is what it is. Maybe in this window, we don't get the sense that we've become such a better selling club, but, maybe that'll come in time as Berta, really gets ingrained in the club and, has some more windows under his belt. So, yeah. Next, I do want to talk about Nelson. He's being linked to a 15 million pound move to Crystal Palace now. They're prioritizing other players first. They know what the fee is. They know what we would want for him and that he's available, but they're prioritizing other signings first. So I don't know if that'll get done or not, but the door is seemingly shut on Fulham because they only want to do a loan, and I don't think we want to do a loan. And they were kind of pissing around. We know that. They were kind of, I think if they were going to bring in Nelson, they were going to wait until the nth hour and then ask for a loan. So Arsenal don't want to do that. Nelson's camp is desperate to move him somewhere else. And so Crystal Palace has, opened up as an option for him. So I'm probably about 50% on that one getting done, because I know Crystal Palace have other things that they're looking at to do instead. They obviously have a lot going on, replacing Eze. They brought in Yeremy Pino. Now, don't know what the fuck that's about. I'll be honest. Yeremy Pino, it's not my money, but if I had that money, I would have spent it much differently. El Canus was right there. So they have bought Yeremy Pino, and now they have to figure out what they're going to do life after Gahey, because Gahey is probably going to end up at Liverpool. So maybe Nelson or adding another winger is further down the line than those things. So we'll see, what happens, from there. And now Kai Havertz. So I'm sure you guys have seen it, but if you haven't, Ornstein had reported on Kai Havertz and what's the next plan of action for Kai. So Arsenal have essentially decided to go in with the surgery. And I'm going to be really honest with you guys. I think that is the best thing that we could do. Hold on. Hold on real quick. I'm just trying to share the screen with you guys, and it's giving me a little bit of a hard time here. Okay. So they've decided to go in with the surgery. Kai Havertz had spent some time in Germany getting assessed, but ultimately the club has decided to go on with the surgery. I think that's the best course of action, because delaying the surgery has never panned out. with Tommy or Ben. We delayed the surgery with both of those, and they ended up being more injured than we wanted, or we would have been so much better off just getting the surgery done, and they would have been back sooner, and maybe they wouldn't have gotten more, broken down playing so much with those injuries. So I think it's a good thing that they've decided to go ahead and go on with the surgery, especially thinking beyond Arsenal and thinking towards the World Cup. You don't want to try to play on it and try to like work around this knee problem, and then you exacerbate it, and then he's out for the World Cup. It says it isn't a major procedure, and the hope expectation for Kai is for him not to miss a lengthy period of time before coming back, which is a positive for us. No matter what you think about Kai, he's not my favorite, but there's never a world where not having Kai is better than having him in this team. So yeah, maybe there's no real time frame on it. So I still think it's going to be, not, it's probably not going to be, I don't know. He's going to be out still for some time, but it's not going to be as bad as, once feared. Cause when it first happened, I was like, he tore his ACL. And I was so rattled because I'm like, he just had a terrible hamstring injury that kept him out for like 4 months. To have to go straight back in for an ACL, it's probably really devastating, which unfortunately is something really similar that happened to Gabriel Jesus. He was injured for a significant amount of time, got the surgery, was trying to work to come back, had a brilliant, little stint, and then tore his ACL. So I was really hoping that that wasn't the case for Kai, and that looks like we have avoided that. So whatever it is, it's going to keep him out for a certain amount of time, but it's not going to be as bad as that, which is a positive thing for him personally outside of Arsenal, and then also for Arsenal. All kidding aside, get well soon, Kai Havertz. If there wasn't any tournament, he may have done surgery at the end of the season, which, that the World Cup has to be taken into consideration, which was like the first thing I thought about. I was like, oh my God, he tore his ACL and now he might not be able to play in the World Cup. As a footballer, you only get so many opportunities to represent your country. If you're lucky to represent them once, that's successful, so Kai has pretty much been a part of their fold since he's, come through, but he's now in his prime. And so you don't want to miss, a World Cup when you're 26, and then the next time one rolls around, you're 30. So he wants to be at this World Cup. This is actually a really important World Cup for a lot of our players because they're in their prime now. And so I would love to see us, unless you're Messi, exactly. But I would love to see this team lift some silverware, and then our players go off to the World Cup and do really, really well. Saliba, Gabriel, Saka, Declan, everyone pretty much, this is, guys, there was a time with this team where we didn't have players in their national teams. They were too old or not good enough to be a part of the setup for their national team. Now it's essentially like almost all of them are unless, whatever, they're going. Martinelli got called up with Gabriel for Brazil. Saka's part of the fucking leadership group for England, as well as Declan. Odegaard is basically leading his team to their World Cup, with Holland, Zubamendi, the list goes on. So, yeah, it's going to be a hefty summer with the World Cup. So I just want to see us lift some silverware, and then, send our players off to hopefully do well in the tournament with their national teams. Arteta has to consider that. We have England's attack on both the men and women's team. I mean, the English influence at Arsenal right now is so intense because you have players actually that are competing for the same position at our club. And you also have young players that are definitely going to be trying to vie for that spot. Ethan is definitely somebody that I think is going to be trying to push. I don't know if he'll make it or not because he's still quite young, but MLS, hello, Declan, hello. Saka, hello. Madueke, hello. Eze, hello. Ben White's probably going to try to get back into the fold, hello. And then we have the young players. What? There was a period of time where there was like no Arsenal fans in the England setup. And as somebody who's not English, I don't really care whether they do well or not. I just want our players to do well. But what will make them happy is for them to do well and for them to win. So there's a little part of me that's like, all right, I hope you do well. Hope it goes well for you. But there was a period of time where I didn't have to worry about that at all. Crazy, right? Kai did his MCL, which is not as bad as ACL, but with surgery, we're looking to 12 weeks minimum. Agreed. Unlike most fans, I actually love our players going to international tournaments. Marino at the 9, the Spanish phenom. Honestly, at this point, the only way I see Martinelli scratching minutes more substantial than cup competitions is if it's a reserve 9. Let's wait. Let's hold off for a second, because the game at Anfield is going to tell us so much about how Arteta views Martinelli. He played a lot in preseason. He started against Man United. He did not play against Leeds. And now we have another big game. Is Arteta phasing him out? Or was he doing some proactive rotation? Because I know I was having this conversation on Twitter and people were like, why do players need rest right now? And I'm like, because you can't just start rotating and managing minutes once they've been ran into the ground. You have to kind of do it early. And so if you have leads early on in the season, you can take 90 minutes away from somebody's legs early doors. Managing minutes does not start for Arsenal in February. It doesn't, so until I see Arteta drop Martinelli against Liverpool, I'm going to assume that he was managing minutes early for maybe him and Marino for the bigger game, right? Had Kai not been injured, well, actually he wasn't injured, but I just feel like we'll see. We will see. My mind is telling me that let's see what happens. Because if he does not start against Liverpool, he's cooked. If he doesn't start against Liverpool, he's cooked. Because the whole narrative around Martinelli is that he's so good against Liverpool. He's our big game player. If Arteta doesn't see him as a big game player in a 6-pointer in September, he's cooked. So I'm going to hold off on my full, when we see that lineup come out, I think we'll know. We'll know. I do think the walls are closing in on him. The last thing you need, as a player that's out of form and fighting for his position, is Eze coming in, Madueke coming in, and Trossard behind you. Because Trossard, as much as people maybe don't rate him, he's not the type of player I would want as competition, because he's not somebody that views himself as a bench player. He doesn't. Trossard does not view himself as a bench player. He thinks that he's that guy, which is why I love him so much. That's why he's such a good rotational option for us, is because he doesn't view himself as that. He's pissed when he's not playing. The last thing you need is Trossard behind you, and Eze and Madueke closing in on you as well. So basically, Martinelli, what he has over the rest of them is understanding the system and having pace. But I do not think that's going to sustain him through the season. If that's it, that's not going to sustain him through the season. Oh, and defensive qualities. Can't see Arsenal winning against Liverpool, City, and Newcastle without Martinelli starting. I can. The safe option would be for him to revert to Martinelli, but showing intent would be to play the new signings. Martinelli has not been good enough for a long time. Spoke volumes that he got max 35 minutes over him. Timber played about 90 minutes in the last 2 games. I like that. Martinelli looked best coming in for Trossard and vice versa. Neither looked great as the starter. Martinelli has always been good against Liverpool. Let's see what the coach does. That's what if he does, he's usually the default and the guy that's going to play in the big games. He's going to play against Liverpool because that's a team that he's good against. So, and then also you're going to maybe assume that if Calafiori starts this game, that he's going to need some support against Salah, which the narrative around Martinelli is that he's good defensively. So I think there is a part of me, I'm 50-50. Actually, I'm probably 75-25. 75% of me thinks that Arteta is managing minutes early and being proactive about his rotation and understands that like we're going to need to rotate early to make sure that when we get to the final part of the season, we are not, struggling. And so a game against Leeds where Madueke, split time with Trossard and Dowman gives Martinelli a chance to get fully up with all his like rest and all that kind of stuff for a tough game at Anfield. And also, Marino didn't play. Marino tends to get little like injuries here and there, and he's also probably the most like for Kai and the team. And maybe Arteta views Marino as an option at the 9 now that Kai is not there. So again, until I see that lineup and Martinelli's not starting, I just feel like Nelly, having reverted to being mostly a speed merchant, actually turns that into a positive as an off the bench striker. Project that against CB 75 minutes deep against Gyökeres style. No, I don't necessarily disagree. If it was up to me, Martinelli would not start, and he would be looked at as an option to come in against tired legs. But Arteta has been incredibly, I would say, loyal to Martinelli and has viewed him as an important part of this team and has really preferred him over Trossard for the most part in big games. And in the first big game that we played of the season, he did play. So I'm just cautious about assuming that him not playing against Leeds is some sort of, move away from Martinelli or something like that. So we shall see. If that makes sense. Soboslai possibly at right back again. Whoever starts must feast. We spoke about that on Judge Mo's show, and I basically was asking the Liverpool fan that was there, what did he think that they would do, and he was saying that he thinks that their right back that they have that was injured that came in. I think he came in at some point against Newcastle would start, and I was like, either option for me feels good. Soboslai as not really a good right back or like an actual right back is a positive for us. And also somebody that's not up to speed is also good for us, so Soboslai played really, really good against Newcastle. I think he was actually their best player and was really, really good against Harvey Barnes. Now, Harvey Barnes was fucking terrible, but he did really well, all things considered. Is Slot confident enough to play Soboslai against Arsenal, who have the opportunity to utilize Eze, Martinelli, or Madueke against, because all three of those players are better than Harvey Barnes. Well, maybe two of them. Will he risk Soboslai in that way? Is that an option for him to make sure that he has all four of his good midfielders out there without having to make a decision to drop any of them? Is he bold enough to have Soboslai pinching into midfield to give them an overload and leaving that space open? Because that's essentially what happens to us. If you play Calafiori and he's pinching in, then that's going to leave Salah open, which is what happened with Mbumo. And that was kind of like scary as fuck. And that was Mbumo. That was not Salah. And we know what Salah is on, right? He's just going to stay high and wide, and they're just going to ping that ball into that channel for Salah to hit us on the break. Now, is Slot going to do the same thing against us and leave possibly Eze or Martinelli or Madueke open on the break? That's a tactical thing to probably look at. So, yeah, Soboslai being at right back to me would not be necessarily a bad thing. And neither would the other boy either, because he's not up to speed. So, yeah, let's see. Let's see. Furman to Newcastle for 100 million going all out. What? No way. Oh, they're ready to quadruple his salary. Breaking, Newcastle are going all out to sign Fermin Lopez. I mean, if he wants to go there, then fair enough. That's from this guy. Are you leaving Barcelona to go to Newcastle? Probably not. But if they were to, that would be a huge coup for Newcastle, and they're going to have the money to get at least one really big signing, because they're selling Isak. Now, do I think that they'll get Fermin Lopez? Probably not. Because if he wouldn't go to Chelsea, he probably wouldn't go to Newcastle, even if the money was there. But could Paquetá end up there? I don't understand why they wouldn't go for Paquetá. But let's see. I want to, if maybe like a Fabrizio or somebody like that puts it out there, I would say like, yeah, but this guy is, I guess, a journalist on the TikTok guys show. So, make of that what you will. What's up with Newcastle's new striker? Any good? I think he is good. From what I've heard, the people were saying when we were about to sign Sesko that, that this guy was better, and Bayern had actually gone after him, and not Sesko was like a sign or whatever. But we'll see. I'm happy with my striker. I love Newcastle making implausible bids. Would these bids scupper the Isak deal? Probably not. The Isak deal is going through, and I think the reason why maybe they would be trying to get, they had, somebody had said that they were trying to get Lautaro Martinez, so they have money, and I don't think there's anything wrong with testing the waters with better players. That's what you do. When you're trying to build, you don't just get people in your station. You test the waters with better players and see what you can do. I just don't see one of Barcelona's like young players, even if it is a World Cup year and he's going to want playing time. Just don't see him going to Newcastle. I don't see Sesko and João Pedro and all these people rejecting them, and then all of a sudden a Barcelona wonder kid saying yes. I just don't see that really happening, and I don't think Barcelona want to sell him, to be honest. So yeah, but you do have to test the waters, because I remember when Nottingham Forest was doing the same thing and they were getting rejected by Fofana and Bakayoko. Now they're getting players, now because they've built themselves up a little bit. So some of those no's are becoming yeses. You have to do that, but does that mean you're going to get everybody? No. Going after Fermin seems more like an ego bid. Why throw 100 million? Barca's financial issues will be sorted out with one sale. Barca do want to sell. I saw that they don't want to sell. That's what I saw from the Fermin Lopez thing. I saw that he doesn't want to go. And then I saw some people saying that he was giving like, a lot of thought to the Chelsea bid or something like that. So yeah, but also, even if they, sorry, I know like this Love Island stuff is a little tawdry, but, at the end of the day, if they get Fermin Lopez, that's crazy, let's see. Don't forget the price will be higher now, as people know they will have the money from Isak's sale and how late the window is. And, there's two things that have to happen. They have to want to sell, and he has to want to go there. And I know it's a World Cup year. I know that people want to make moves so that they can play, but Barcelona wonder kid ending up at Newcastle feels incredibly unlikely. But if they pulled that off, that would be the coup of the summer. Man United signing Sesko, a sign they were finished. Robbie from AFTV kept saying Tottenham won't play teams like Bodo, only for them to get them in the UCL. So yeah, but listen, all right. So I do want to talk about Man United for a second, because it would not be my stream if I didn't talk a little shit. But something told me yesterday to just take a look. Just take a look. Just see what they're like against this Grimsby or whatever. Because first I didn't know that they were playing at all. And then I didn't know they were playing. And then I was like, Grimsby? And I was like, damn, that's crazy. Let's just take a look. My gut told me to look. And within like the first 20 minutes, like genuinely my screen, like the one I'm looking at right now, half of it was the game and the other half of it was Saeed's stream. And his stream was with the volume and the commentary from the actual game was off. That was the best watch along I've ever seen. That was so hilarious. Watching in real time, Saeed and Nurdin, I think his name is, watch those goals hit the back of the net. That was better. Was it? Because I'm not going to lie, my favorite hate watch of Man United was the Europa League final against Unai Emery, Villarreal. That was my favorite hate watch of all time because they took about 20 penalties in that game as well. I don't know what it is about United and going in these long penalties where it goes to like 20 players, but it got all the way to David De Gea. And their goalkeeper had already put the ball in the back of the net. And David De Gea had to score in order for it to keep going. He stood up there and he ran up to that ball. And his knees knocked together when he ran up to try to kick the ball. And it was saved, and it was so funny. And they went out. They didn't go out. They lost the final. And I kid you not, those reactions were so funny. They were so funny. This was like that. It might have been better because the team was so much worse. It was Grimsby, no offense to Grimsby. Shout out to Grimsby. But those guys are part-time footballers. They're in the 4th tier of English football, League 2. They have other jobs that they do. And they knocked Manchester United, big Manchester United, out of the Carabao Cup. And deservedly, because they bopped them in the first half. It should have been 3-0. And Man United got lucky and the referee called offside when it wasn't offside. It should have been dead and buried at 3-0. They were getting bopped. Like they were getting absolutely bullied by these players. When the rain was falling down so hard and they were just so desperate for the game to get called off, I was like, do you actually think that these Grimsby players are phased by this rain? They don't give a fuck. They are not going to stop this game. You're going to have to play in these conditions. That was so funny. Andre Onana. Do any Arsenal fans have shame? The ones that wanted him at this club. I'm going to tell you one thing. I love my people. And I always will advocate for Black players getting, playing positions and, getting respect and all that kind of stuff. You guys know I don't really believe in, Black players being reduced down to their physical attributes. But one thing we are not good at is goalie. No Black goalkeepers. I'm so sorry. Andre Onana is the biggest. He is just no. It's just, is he match fixing? Seriously, what the fuck was that? What the hell was that? What the hell? I was like, he is chucking the ball in the back of his net. Chucking the ball in the back of his net twice. And then he could have saved like 5 of those pens and they still went in the back of the net. They need to check him. I've never seen a goalkeeper that needs to be investigated more. I'm sorry. He set Black goalkeepers back so far because they already don't trust us in between the sticks. And it's worse now. My gosh. That's why I never bought into Mignon. Goalkeeper getting hurt every game? Stop the nonsense. Andre Onana is a disgrace. And Arsenal fans wanted him at Arsenal. They were begging for him. We must. No. I'm so glad whatever intervened to make sure that we did not get him. Thank you. And they also wanted him after he got like banned for drugs. I was like, no, I'm good on that. Yeah, but whew, buddy, was that funny? It was so hilarious. I'm not even going to lie. I was laughing out loud. And then for it to get to pens, you could just tell that they were just hoping that even though they played bad against Grimsby, that they scammed it. And usually, though they scam it, usually they have the scammer gene. You know who had the biggest scammer gene? There was a couple of them, but Eric Ten Hag had the biggest scammer gene I've ever seen. Biggest scammer gene. Never really deserved anything, but would always get it. Whether that was Maguire coming up big with a header, whether that was getting a scammy pen, whether that was getting a scummy goal, whether that was, Rashford just turning into a flat track bully all of a sudden against these lower teams, just everything, playing against a drunk Man City in the FA Cup. Just if he was going to scam, it was happening. Like, he always had the scam. The fact that Amorim does not have the scammer gene at Man United, he must go. They need to look at that. Every Man United manager has had an element of scammery, juju, if you will. And he doesn't have it. He got a Maguire header. He got a refereeing decision. Hold on. He got a refereeing decision, and he still did not get through against Grimsby. No. I've never seen anything like that before. I was like, they always scam it. They always scum it up and get through. And he couldn't even do it. He doesn't have the gene. That's crazy. Oh my goodness. Playing against Tottenham Hotspur in a Europa League final and losing was already a red flag. I was like, how? They were worse than you in the league. And I was like, maybe it was just, it was just one of those things. No, he doesn't have it. Then he sat up there. He sat up there with his tactical board. And that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. I laughed so hard when he brought that out because his hands were shaking like a stripper. He was trying to figure it out. What do you think that's going to do? You need tactics against Grimsby? Tactic board. Really? Just to bring Mount on as a left wing back. No, baby. A tactical board? Really? I knew that meme was going to go triple platinum. They're going to use that for years to come. Years to come. I was like, that is gold. Send that to me. I have it saved in my phone. I will be using it many, many times. I saw them put like Battleship on there. I saw them put that doctor game, like what is it called? Like Operation. I saw them put him rolling a blunt on there. Oh my goodness. Then he sat. Now this is where I had like the little bit of sadness for him. Just for a second, I got weak because I'm a nice person, deep down. Where he sat in the dugout and was looking like this and couldn't watch the pens. I was like, he's broken. Because he realized on that day that they didn't want him as a manager. He probably had suspicions. He probably thought, actually after Arsenal, he probably didn't think that. But he probably had suspicions when they played against Fulham. They weren't up for it. But he realized during those 90 minutes that they did not want him as Manchester United manager because they downed tools on him. They downed tools. They downed tools on him. And he realized that in those 90 minutes, and it broke him. So much so that he couldn't watch the penalties. Then he went into his interview and said that they showed him a lot, or they showed a lot through their performance, which some people interpreted that as like they wanted him to change the system. But I think that he interpreted that, which he should have, as they don't want you, bro. Do you know how long it took for them to down tools on Eric Ten Hag? To down tools on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? They've done it in under a year. Under a year. They don't want to play 3-5-2 or whatever the fuck it is. They don't want to play wing backs, and they don't believe in you. Not a Moncler coat, not a, Dolce & Gabbana jacket, not a Valentino shoe. None of that saved you, bro. None of that. They want you gone. I couldn't believe it. I think Kabi was the final the final nail in the coffin. They said, "You wanna sell the crown jewels? You wanna sell, you wanna sell this? Like, come on. You wanna sell the family china? Like, that's crazy. The family silver?" It was dark. Let me read some of these comments. Farhan, thank you so much for your super chat. Said, "We don't have black refs as well. Black refs we need. Black goalkeepers, I'm not sure." I don't think it's in us. I think we can do anything. We can be quarterbacks. We can be, number 10s. We can be more than just our physical attributes, more than just athletes, you know. But I don't think we have whatever it is that is required to be a goalkeeper. I think that's where the buck stops. T Wiz says, "Fine lady, what's your name?" She knows Arsenal. Jessica. That's my name. Thank you for the compliment. Thank you. Don't get used to this. Usually I come up here looking like a little boy. So yeah. And Farhan also said, "Truly, you know about football and you're beautiful." Thank you. I really do appreciate that. I appreciate all the kind comments. I would say, do not get used to this. If you've been here, you get it. If you've been here, you get it, so don't get used to this, but thank you so much. Mastered said, "Breaking, Alejandro Garnacho to Chelsea. Here we go. Deal done to Chelsea and Man United. Garnacho only won to Chelsea and will sign a 7-year deal at the club for a fee close to 40 million package." It is what it is. That's their trauma. Like us. If Garnacho was signing for Arsenal, there's no amount of hopium copium that would make me rate him. I get that I do think Garnacho has some capabilities of being a top player, but Chelsea is also somewhat of a talent graveyard. So I'm not sure if they'll be able to get it out of him because, and then he also just has like this environment around him that's incredibly disruptive when things aren't going his way. There's a lot of reasons why I would never want Alexander Garnacho or Alejandro or whatever his name is to play for Arsenal. But that's their problem. Chelsea will be trying to put him into, combined 11s and shit in about a week. You know how it goes. Wait for the auntie glasses. Exactly. Madueke is better. 7-year deal. Chelsea being Chelsea. I see Gittins and Garnacho is weird. I heard all kinds of names. Benjamin, sex offender, McBooty, BBL, Bumo. I mean, Lord have mercy. That was dark. Like, it was dark. And then after, we got the opportunity to watch them get knocked out of the Carabao Cup in the second round by Grimsby Town, then the content. And my goodness, was it cinema? Saeed, you deserve an Oscar. That was funny, my friend. That was hilarious. I mean, he's Jamal now. He can't walk around in the street. There's a clip of him saying that there's no way that Grimsby Town will beat them. Hilarious. Flex, he is dead inside. It was so funny. Lias, Cams, Mark, Terry, everybody. It was dark. I was like, huh. But you played well against Arsenal, right? You played well against Arsenal. You had positives. You didn't win, but you won XG. So I don't know what you guys are sad about, because you won the league on the first game of the season when you lost to Arsenal. So yeah. Troops gonna cook him in a live Big Six show as well. We will be there. Nuruddin was laughing. He's hilarious. I actually think that the combination of Saeed and Nuruddin was perfect because Nuruddin gives no fucks whatsoever, and Saeed is obviously like so troubled by this. So yeah. Let's see. Well played. We played well FC. Oh my god, the Benjamin sex offender is effed up. It is. And Sesko, oh my god. Now, unpopular opinion, he definitely wasn't the worst player out there, but he definitely was not good. Until he scores a goal, it is going to be dark for him because he essentially could have went to Arsenal and also could have went to Newcastle. So you have two huge fan bases preying on your downfall, unfortunately, young man. But the bicycle kick, the whiffed bicycle kick. I'm sorry. I couldn't even. 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 And the questions around his mentality were definitely answered, because I know that Indy Kayla was trying to say that he wanted to take a pen, but you know, he wasn't allowed. How the fuck do you know? Who do you know on the bench that's telling you what the fuck is going on? You don't know shit. I'm sorry, but that guy has totally frauded people. I'm David Ornstein. Seriously, I love Orny. He's the most reliable guy out there, but you have done irreparable damage by giving him a cosign, because he's been writing fan fiction ever since. He is so incredibly fraudulent. They, whatever group, has some connections. I think they have connections to Paul Joyce and a couple of other Liverpool higher ups. But outside of that, he gets a lot wrong. Her, whoever, gets a lot of things wrong and deletes all of it. Because a lot of things that they have gotten wrong, they have deleted. And they're out there writing fucking fan fiction. They take something and then they write a fan fiction attached to it, and people are eating that shit up. And I'm just like, how do you know that Sesko wanted to take a pen? Who the fuck do you know that was a part of the conversation between Amorim and Sesko about the penalty? You know, like, and even worse, so even if Sesko wanted to take a pen and Amorim didn't want you to take it, that's also not good, because he did not trust his 80 million pound striker to take a pen against Grimsby Town. Like, what is going on here? Why are you not the first man up to take a pen? Bruh. My striker would never. He couldn't wait to snatch the ball out from under. Like, he was not about to let Dowman take that penalty the other day so he could stat pad against Leeds. You know, there's no doubt in my mind that if we needed to go into a penalty shootout tomorrow, that, you know, Victor Gyökeres would step up and put that ball in the back of the net. Sesko not doing that is crazy to me. You know, because even if you're young, you still should be, as an attacker, one of the first ones. What? Like, how are you not one of the first people up there? Defenders took penalties before you. I don't get that. You know, so whether it was the case that you wanted to and Amorim didn't trust his big bad striker to take a pen, or you didn't want to do it, I'm watching. You know, so he's I can accept, you know, him not having a good game, because I do think that when you go to United, there's a big chance that whatever powers you had, whatever talent that you have, will dissipate and just drain out of your body. You know, Man United will eventually find a way to make Mbumo and Cunha look like bad players. But I expect you to step up there and take a pen. I expect you to stand up there and take a pen. I just do, you know, period. And I know he put his away when he eventually went up there, which is good for him. But why are you not first, honey? You know? I respect Gyökeres so much more. He was hovering around Rice to take the pen. Can tell he's obsessed with scoring, and he's confident. United is a pressure cooker for talented youngsters, which was, again, like a reason why I didn't really understand why he went to United. Outside of the allure of United and potentially money, which, you know, they said that they actually offered less wages than Newcastle. I just think from a development perspective, it was a strange choice, because you could have went to Newcastle, where of course there's pressure, but there's probably a better environment for you to grow, and you could still like eventually get that move. But you know, the allure of Man United is still there. Sean Dyche was talking about it the other day, that if he wanted to, you know, get a job, if he wanted to take any job, he would take United because of the allure of the history of it, not necessarily where they are now, but what they were before. That will still suck somebody in. And so I understand that. But for a young player, I don't understand why you would go there, because it just feels like somewhere where you could slip through the cracks very easily. I mean, they have chewed up plenty of players that aren't even young, you know? Apparently last summer, Sesko didn't come because of competition with Havertz. Someone said heaven went to hell in Big Sense fans. Sesko needs coddling. I'm not surprised the guy was scared to rip the 9 spot off of Kai. So, of course, he'd sit there and let everyone take pens before him. It's a graveyard. Sesko was worried about joining Arsenal due to Havertz. Yeah, it was just dark. It was dark. I was like, could it get darker? Because I wouldn't mind seeing it get a little darker. If it was up to me, I'm not even going to lie. I wouldn't, as I cannot stand them so much that if they got relegated, I would not give a fuck. I'm so sorry. They are my number one op. I know it's rude and mean, but if they could get relegated, I would love that. Because I know a lot of their fans, if we could get relegated, they would want us to get relegated. So I'm like, if it could get a little bit worse, I wouldn't mind that. But, it was dark. It was. Yesterday was, I could not imagine, because we had some bad banter days. Like our banter era was incredibly dark. But I'm trying to think Baku, we went out to, Chelsea. I don't remember us going out. I think the lowest that we got in terms of going out of cup competitions probably was Nottingham Forest when they were in the championship or something like that, maybe. But we've taken some beatings, but a lot of the beatings were against good sides like City, Bayern, whatever. Getting dominated by Grimsby is crazy. Man United getting relegated will make me more happy than us winning the league. If Burnley beat them at OT this weekend, it will be cinema. I mean, if I'm Burnley, I'm confident, of getting something, because I feel like when United are in a bad place, it gets exacerbated by the fans and all that. And are they not at Old Trafford? So, Old Trafford could get really dark really quick, so if they're not behind you, it could get really so Burnley, let's go. Cheeto has gone silent. Listen, Cheeto, you made your choice. Burnley looked decent last weekend as well. To be fair, most of our parents weren't alive for Arsenal's worst cup defeat ever, Walsall, which was a long, long, long time ago. I don't feel bad for Cheeto. He made his decision. Yeah, Cheeto for me is whatever. It wasn't about a pathway. It wasn't about a pathway. It wasn't about any of that kind of stuff. It's about exactly what you think it was about. So, he made his choice. He's not an Arsenal player anymore. And I have Max Dowman. So, yeah, I think the lowest maybe was Sunderland. They were in League One at the time, I think 21, 22. But I mean, Sunderland got a little Prem history to them. Yeah, it was we've had some moments, but I think even in 21, 22, there was already an acceptance under Mikel that we were building and weren't necessarily in a position where we were supposed to be. Like with United, there's this element of you don't have time, it needs to work now. You spent 200 million, with Arsenal, I think there was an element of we were building, we had a really bad team, we were relying upon young players to kind of carry us through. It was a lot of stuff going on. In 21, 22, I believe was the year that we just barely missed out on the Champions League. We were very much so in that in between of, you can see that they're building, but there's still some shit going on right there. So yeah, it still was not like that. I think our main banter era that was as bad as it was going to get online was end of Wenger, parts of Emery. That was the worst for sure. We had that comeback against Reading after being 4-0 down, losing a quarterfinal at home to Championship Blackburn in 2013 was probably it. Yeah, I mean, we've had some for sure, but I think, yeah, I agree. I feel like the worst ones actually are pre-Mikel, if I'm honest. Mikel, we've had some meltdowns and we've had some really dark times too with him, but the darkest times to me were end of anger, because I've never been a casual fan for Arsenal. It's always been obsession, 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 obsession. But from 2016 to about 2019, I was very much so a casual fan. I was avoiding Arsenal. I was like, I just don't think, because I just did not recognize my club. I did not recognize my club at all. I was like, this is dark. Like, I can't do this anymore. And then like when Mikel came in, I was like, okay, let's get back into it. Emery, I couldn't do Emery. I couldn't do Emery. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do Emery. Baku, I barely remember the game because I remember half-ass watching it because I was like, we're about to fuck this shit up. Because I could not believe that we had 7 games and we only had to win 1 to make Champions League in the league, and we couldn't do it. My first ever Arsenal game that I went to was that season when we played Brighton at home. And it was, it wasn't a great Brighton side. It wasn't the Brighton side today. And they came to the Emirates. We scored on a penalty. We played terrible, by the way. It was cold as fuck. And we were in the club seats. Everybody was looking at me and my mom like we were aliens because we were excited to be at our first Arsenal game. And we were screaming and they were looking at us like, are you nuts? So it was like awkward. And then Granit Xhaka pulled one of the Brighton players down in the box and they got a penalty and we drew that game. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. It's too much. But yeah. Hakuza says that's the same time I was a casual. It was just like, it was the only time I just could not do Arsenal. I can do, rebuilding, like new players, young players, but the end of Emery shocked my system. I was like, I can't do this. This is not my club. And I just never connected to Emery. I don't hold any bad blood with him. Like, it's not like I hated Emery. Like, I just knew that he wasn't the guy because he wasn't an Arsenal guy. Like, you could just tell. And it was rough because he's not even the manager that he is now with Aston Villa. It was just, get it away from me. I legit, I was so casual. I didn't know who was on the team for real. Y'all were out here watching Mustafi and Socrates and shit. I couldn't do it. I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is too much for me. The team smelled so bad. I was like, the season that broke me was losing the league to Leicester. And we were top of the league for a while. I stopped watching and only followed the score for years after that. I think that's about the time, for me too. I was like, I think it's time for me to take up other hobbies, I remember losing 6-0 to Chelsea. Jeez Louise. Brighton used to dunk on us on the regular. 2018 was just a bad year for us. I don't know how we managed 15 unbeaten with Emery. It's dark. It was dark. Same for me. DT and troops every year outside the Allianz Arena was generational. I went away for a little while to protect my mental health. You had to, because it just it wasn't good. Do you feel any better about our business this summer now? Of course. I'm not that type of person that's like, I'm honest about how I feel about things in the moment because I'm not afraid to change my opinion if things change, because that's what like normal people do. And at the beginning of the window, like after Gyökeres, that time, I still felt like there was a big chunk missing. And that was the second attacker that was a level raiser. Madueke, for me, is still in the bucket of, could be really good for us, but I'm not quite sure. But I think he'd be better as the third attacker if we got one, not one of the main level raisers. As a third attacker, Madueke is just fine. But as one of the main level raisers, that's what he looked like post-signing Gyökeres, I was concerned that our window was not strong enough to really compete. Now, a couple weeks after that, we get Eze, and now we're looking at Hincapie, which actually we could have ended the window after Eze, and I probably would have still felt exactly the same about the window, to be honest. I was okay with Kiwior. Like, if he stayed, is what it is. But yeah, because the Eze signing is so heavily weighted because he is an actual lever raiser in attack, whether he's playing left wing, left center mid, 10, right center mid, whatever. So yeah, I feel very good about our window. And like I was saying before, our window was not bad. Just because I didn't think that our window was a 10 out of 10, which some people were trying to paint it as, they were like, it's definitely a 9 out of 10 with Gyökeres and Madueke. Definitely a 9 out of 10, definitely a 10 out of 10. What do you mean? We signed 6 players. It was like a solid 6.5 without Eze. With Eze, for me, it's a 9. That's how big of a signing that is for me. Gyökeres and Eze hold so much more weight for me in this window than Kepa, Mascara, and Norgard, right? And I just don't really understand. I didn't really understand the Madueke. So yeah, I feel much better about it. I'm very impressed with the window. I feel like the only thing that would make it better is if we had got some, amazing, sales in there. But ultimately, it's been a fantastic window, probably the best in our history, especially Emirates era. We pretty much did everything that we needed to do, you know. Let's see. Do you remember when Almunia conceded a goal after Sol Campbell left the ball for him to pick? It was comedy, one of my lowest with Arsenal at the time. We've had some shit goalkeepers. That's why even when people are like, "Oh, we should have got Juan Garcia." Yeah. I was like, "I'm so sorry, but I love Raya so much that this Juan Garcia, like, fair enough, like, we could have gotten him and he could have been it forever, but I'm so happy with Raya. He is I don't know, he just is the best goalkeeper that we've had, like, in the Emirates era to me. So it's like, yeah, because we've had some bad goalkeepers in our time. Like, when Czech is one of your best goalkeepers that you've had in the Emirates era, it's dark. Like, it really is. So, yeah. But yeah, the Mustafi era was peak. So now it feels much better. Of course, the window feels much better with Eze. I'm not one of those types of people that is like still saying that the window is shit. I still see people saying that the window is subpar. And I get if you still need a winger, that's cool. But some people are still painting the window as a bad window. And I'm just like, it is a fantastic window. It really is. So everything that I wanted, we pretty much got. Oh yeah. Emi Martinez could have been good, but at this rate, he wanted to play more. He didn't want to fight for it. So Mustafi might be the worst player I've seen for Arsenal. He's one of them for sure. Shocking player with a really bad attitude as well. Things changed when Saliba came. He's the man. Also, Saka stepping up. The good thing about Raya is no matter what happened, he never seems flustered. Yeah, I think that Raya is a very confident person, and outside of like the very beginning when he first got here, he's been fantastic since. So yeah, the only good thing of those dark days was Abba and Laka. They still get my respect. I mean, they were definitely a bright light in a very dark moment for Arsenal. I don't think either one was, I think it was right players, wrong time for both of them in certain ways. Lacazette, I feel like should have come in maybe 2 years earlier. There was a preseason where we played against Lyon. We bopped them, but there was rumors that we would get Lacazette and we didn't get him for like 2 more years after that. We should have got him then. And Aubameyang was kind of like a panic buy in January or an opportunity. I still think that there was a way that they could have played together, but we just had the pieces. It was odd. We were struggling. There was just a lot going on, but they will always have my respect, despite the fact that I wanted both of them to go because I felt like it was necessary. They both obviously get a lot of respect, and I do think Aubameyang is the best striker that we've had in the Emirates era, to a certain extent. Like maybe Van Persie was more talented, but he only really played one good season for us before he fucked off to Man United and won everything for them. So, yeah, Aubameyang for me is, one of the best that we've had striker-wise, proper player. And he's also a testament to why you don't need an overly technical striker to be successful. Because Aubameyang wasn't, Thierry Henry in terms of the technical quality, but we still made it work. So yeah, Aubameyang will always get my respect for sure. And so will Lacazette. He tried, you know, he, um, he will always get my respect for sure. But listen, you guys, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Let's make sure that we like the video and subscribe to the channel on the way out. If anything breaks, you guys know I'll come back. But the next time that you guys will see me is after the well, actually, no. Actually, you'll probably see me on Saturday. Potentially. We may do like a "Are you shitting it yet?" show for the Liverpool game. So stay tuned for that. But tomorrow off, this is the final show before the weekend. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, guys.